we've got an upcoming role coming up. Can I give a plug for it? Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I started volunteering.
It's all about who you know in sport.
Am I going to be calling the last 10 seconds of the grand final?
You can connect with the interviewer. The hand goes up when they've got to make a decision.
Having a network is one of the most important things you can do.
I didn't necessarily follow my passion. I followed my curiosity.
Once you've worked in sport, there's no going back.
And then lo and behold, before I left, I got offered two.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Grad Podcast, the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry, where I chat with people in the industry and find out how they got hired into dream jobs in sport. If you want to know what people are doing to break in and grow their career, hit subscribe to the pod and subscribe to our newsletter for even more advice. Now, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Deakin University, home to the world's #1 sports science school. If you're looking to get started on your journey in sport, explore their study options today. Now, if this is your first time to the show, my name is Ruben Williams. I'm the founder of SportsGrad, and we have helped people land 780 roles in sport. We like to give a quick shout out to people in our community every single week who are winning big in the sports industry, and this one goes out to none other than Dante McDonald. You might be familiar with Dante. He's become a bit of the poster boy of SportsGrad this year after he landed a job at Cricket Australia just 16 days after joining the SportsGrad Method program back in Jan-Feb this year. And Cricket Australia have loved him so much, they've given him a new role. He has been promoted after just 8 months, going across departments into the new role of Customer Experience Operations Coordinator. So look out for Dante. He's going to be on the ground during the Ashes at a few of the test matches, doing some customer research with fans around the ground to understand how they can make the sport better. And with that as well has come the opportunity for people in the SportsGrad Method program to get involved with Cricket Australia and help with these surveys on the ground. And it was particularly cool to hear that Cricket Australia specifically wanted SportsGrad people helping them at the Ashes during this. So thank you, Dante, for that opportunity, and well done on the new role. Now, if you want to give yourself a competitive advantage in the job market, like Dante has found for himself, and you want to put your career on a new trajectory where you don't just break into sport, but you get hired again and again and again, as Dante is proving, then go to our website and apply for the next cohort of the SportsGrad Method program. All right, on to today's episode. Coming up on the show is Dan Simons, the Director of People and Community at the Victorian Institute of Sport. Now, I caught up with Dan during the week at the VIS Award of Excellence over in Melbourne's CBD, where it was expertly hosted by Laura Hingston, their 10-metre platform diver. Nicole Livingston, the new CEO, spoke excellently, and Scotty James took home the main award of the night. And it was really cool just to kind of be amongst this crowd of sporting people. A lot of attention gets thrown towards cricket and AFL and all the big sports like that, but I walked away from the night thinking there are some incredible people who are training and coaching inside the VIS who just don't get enough attention in, typical media. And so to be able to kind of see that platform during the night was really cool for myself, and a nice reminder of how many inspirational people and how many amazing people particularly are in the sports industry, and particularly coming up through these Olympic sports, which the VIS focuses on. Now, the reason why we got Dan Simons on the podcast is because we wanted to dissect the Victorian Institute of Sport's new strategy for the next 8 years in the lead up to Brisbane 2032. I mentioned Nicole Livingston. She's come in with a fresh set of eyes. And so with that has come a new strategy. And so Dan and I sat down to break down each of the priority areas for the VIS and how that looks in practice, and then what that means for you guys and your career. Dan has worked in HR and people and culture roles for a long, long time. And we go into detail on how you can start to use a company strategy like this to actually enhance your next application. And that doesn't really matter if you're applying at the VIS or anywhere in the sports industry. So if you are looking for a job at the Victorian Institute of Sport or any other sort of high-performance organisation, Dan shares what they look for when they're recruiting, how to nail an application here, plus how you can incorporate it into your resume, your cover letter, your interview, so that you can make sure that an employer can see that you are aligned on the same mission. Now, Dan was previously the head of people and culture at Golf Australia, as well as the PGA of Australia. And back in episode 110, I reckon that was 2021 we last caught up, you can hear his advice on how to master a job application. So if you enjoy this chat with Dan, you can get more of Dan back in episode 110. Grab a pen and enjoy this chat with Daniel Simons. Dan, welcome back to the SportsGrad podcast.
Second time, Ruben. How lucky am I?
I know. It's been about 220 odd episodes since you last came in. I think the The last one I actually refer to a lot of people very regularly, episode 110 on how to master your job application, where you are, I think, in the same role at Golf Australia at the time.
Actually, a different role now. So, things change in 3 years, particularly if you listen to the pod, hey?
Yeah, well, that was back in 2021. I think we're in COVID and going through a screen, and there's been a few upgrades since then, so glad we could do this in person.
Nice. I was in day 13 of isolation, one more day and I could get out. Do you remember those times?
I do. It's very different now, which is good. But mate, you've adhered to the new tradition of the podcast, which is getting people to bring in a lanyard from their past. And we've got a lanyard wall here at Sports Grade House where we're pinning them all up, and they're starting to build a collection. And you've brought one in today. What have you got? Hey guys, before we jump into the episode today, just a quick note to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Deakin University, home to the world's #1 sports science school. But whether you're into sports science, management, coaching, or business, Deakin gives you the chance to study what you love and turn it into a career.
I brought one in today. It is from my office, and it is from Victorian Institute of Sport Open Day, which is a day in which we open up the doors of the VIS to the whole community to showcase all the excellent athletes that we have and all the different expertise that we have. So from staff to physios, biomechanics, people in culture, marketing, everyone. So it's a day we open it up to the community, which is quite a special day.
Amazing. What time of the year is that usually happening for those people who might listen to this down the track?
Well, it's just as rare as like the Olympics. Happens once every 4 years. We do it to celebrate our Olympians and Paralympians when they come home from the games.
Okay, so look out for that after LA.
Yeah, correct. 2028, look out.
Awesome. And your first ever lanyard, do you remember that one?
I do. My first ever lanyard was in 2008, and I remember it exactly because it was my first ever gig working on a large event, which was the Melbourne Cup Carnival. And what was special about it was I was a bartender working at the races. It was my first time at the races. So, grew up in Melbourne, never ever been to Flemington Racecourse, and it was my first time there. And I was a bartender working for a private law firm, I think it was, serving them drinks while they enjoyed Melbourne Cup Day. And I remember looking at the lanyard, and it had general access, and it was special because it obviously got me admitted into the birdcage to do all that kind of stuff. And for me, it opened up a whole new world of events. But it was very exciting. I had that lanyard for a year, hung it on my mirror in the car. And then the sun damaged it, and then I threw it out. So.
Oh, no.
So that was my very first lanyard, and it was my very first event, Melbourne Cup Carnival, which is quite timely given it's next week.
That's it. We're back on again. It is a great feeling when you get your first lanyard and you're like, all right, I'm in, I'm part of the industry. But you don't keep them anymore, I hear. You had to dig deep to find this one.
There was that Netflix show, Decluttering. I can't remember.
Oh, Marie Kondo?
Yeah, Marie Kondo, What Gives You Joy. And I just had all these bunch of lanyards that I'm like, look, I'm never going to wear these again. I've got photos from the events, and that's probably what I reminisce of. I get a lot of photos from the events that I do, and that probably means, looking back on that gives me a bit of happier times than staring at a lanyard in my bedroom.
Fair enough. Well, for anyone who might potentially want to come on this podcast, don't throw out your lanyards just yet, because we might find a use for them here at Sports Grade House. But the VIS has got a wonderful slogan, success in sport and life, which is kind of similar to what we're about here at Sports Grad too. But we'd love to hear, what does that mean for staff, not just the athletes?
Yeah, so it's the full sentence is empowering athletes to succeed in sport and life. And that's our mission. So every day I'm fortunate to go into a workplace that's filled with talented and world-class expertise that drives empowering our athletes really to succeed, not just in sport. And I think that's the important part. Yes, we want them to succeed in winning medals and making national teams and winning national championships and world championships, all of that. But the second part of that is in life. And we want them to succeed beyond that. The sports career of an athlete is that small, but life is this long. So preparing those athletes for life outside of sport is really important. And so, I'm very lucky to be able to work in an organisation that puts that at the heart of what we do.
I remember a role came up at the VIS many years ago, which I think was the one that Rachel Lynch stepped into. Yeah. And it was like performance lifestyle advisor or something like that. And I think, from the outside looking in, that seems like the role that speaks most to how to have a balanced life across both those two disciplines. What does a role like Rachel's kind of bring to the athletes of the VIS?
Well, Rachel is a superstar, first of all, 283 games in for the Hockeyroos. She's a nurse and she balances that with working with wheelchair rugby as well as working at the VIS. So not only an incredible athlete, but an incredible role model of success in sport and life. And so a role like that entails working with our athletes, particularly around the scheduling and balancing of Year 12 commitments. There's often a lot of Year 12 students doing sacks in the corridor that I can see with the performance lifestyle advisors, but then also helping balance that workload, because an elite athlete workload, which is what our athletes are, is quite significant. And being able to work with the lifestyle advisor to help find that right balance, so they're not too overwhelmed with everything that they might be doing in Year 12, whether it be uni or work. They've got that resource to talk about it, and Rachel's a great example of someone who does that for our athletes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just quickly, just to add context to the VIS and who you guys serve, you get a lot of pathway performance programs coming through for Olympic sports, but you also, I believe, get the likes of Oscar Piastri dipping in from time to time, or Scott Boland. Who are some of the people that drop into the VIS? Hey guys, quick one. Are you either A, dreading going back to work tomorrow, or B, on a mission to fulfill your potential and get there as quickly as possible? If so, then you need to apply for the Sports Grad Method program. The program is designed to help you get a full-time job in sport as quickly as possible, and inside it, I distill the lessons I've learned from asking over 300 people how they got a job in sport. I'm talking professionals from the AFL, Premier League, cricket, NBA, Olympics, you name it. And I've combined it with the methods that not only got me hired by Cricket Australia before graduating, but also helped me double my salary during COVID. Sports Grad has helped people land over 700 roles in sport, and this program takes the guesswork out of an industry where most people think you need to get lucky. To apply for the Sports Grad Method program, head to www.sportsgrad.com.au/program. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, OP has dropped in a fair few times. He's obviously lives down the road and is very familiar with the VIS. I think it's turn 6 as well as he goes past. It provides them, well, it is a private facility, so it provides them with the ability to train and do what their performance requirements are in a private setting rather than going out to a public gym and probably getting stopped 100 times for a selfie or autograph. But it also provides them access with elite equipment. We've got elite recovery facilities, gym equipment, as you know, recovery, sports science that they can also tap into as well. So OP's one that's dropped by. We've had a few of the AFLW and AFL teams drop by as well. Several basketballers. I think the only time I've been really starstruck at the VIS is when Paddy Mills dropped by.
Fair enough.
He's an absolute legend. So friendly. I was almost taller than him. But
really?
Yeah, it was. He probably didn't have big shoes on, like his basketball shoes on, and I did have big shoes on. But he's an absolute legend. Always got a smile on his face. The Matildas, obviously, really cool seeing Steph Catley, who's a Victorian, back at the VIS. So we support her, and seeing her do her off-season here before she headed over back with Arsenal. It's been pretty cool. So some big names.
That's really cool because, if you work in sport in Melbourne, you're probably working at a footy club or in cricket, or you can usually contain to one sport, whereas you guys are getting the absolute cream of the crop across every sport, and some of the biggest names of the world. Josh Giddey, does he ever stop by?
Josh Giddey has stopped by once or twice. Who else have we had? We've had recently a couple of Paralympians and Olympians from other institutes as well. But one of the biggest names, Scotty James, snowboarder, absolute legend, and couple of other, Dylan Alcott has just come back as well for a little bit. So yeah, absolute legends of all sports. And that's probably the unique thing about us is, you're right, we get access to all these different sports and athletes across a whole cross-section of society.
Well, it's a very cool place to work from the outside looking in, so that's really good to hear. But I shot your LinkedIn message a few days ago because you put out a post saying that the VIS has got a new strategic plan from 2025 to 2032. With a bunch of new priorities and pillars that are going to lead the organisation forward. So I wanted to get you in here to kind of break it all down and help people understand what it means and how they can incorporate it into perhaps their job hunt and help them understand what goes on inside an organisation and what it might mean for their applications as well too. But before we dive into the nitty gritty of it, we'd love to understand like what instigated a new strategic plan at this point in time, and where's it going to lead you?
Yeah. Well, quite simply, our old strategic plan was from 2021 to 2024. So we had to do a new one. But we also had a change of leadership. Our old CEO, after 18 years, retired, and we've got a new CEO, Nicole Livingston. And so with that came an opportunity to refresh the strategy and align it to the new CEO's direction and vision, which is what we've done. We've actually used the expertise and used a strategic consultant as well that worked with our staff and stakeholders to develop a new strategy. So that's what brought it upon. It's quite simply just ran out of time. We expired.
Was it your old mates at PwC or somewhere else?
No, definitely not my old mates at PwC. We can't mention them. They're in trouble with the government. But no, it was with a sports consultant that understood us really well. Her name's Deirdre Anderson, and she was really lovely to work with.
Funny you mentioned that name. I know Deirdre. So we go way back. Was not expecting this, but we crossed paths at the 2017 University Games in Taipei.
Oh, amazing.
And I remember her because I was an intern with Unisport at the time, and in the lead up to those games, she had just done a new strategy for Unisport Australia.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, Unisport was it was Australian university sport, and they were trying to restructure the uni games to not be a party and excuse to get drunk. And
that's what uni games are for.
Exactly right. Well, not anymore, thanks to Deirdre. So, and they wanted to turn it into a proper pathway program for athletes to get more experience on the lead up to Com Games and Olympics and what now. So. I believe that's going pretty well. So cool to know that she's got her fingerprints on this as well.
Absolutely. Well, to be fair, Deirdre was employed at the VIS in the early 90s. So the VIS was founded in 1990 and she commenced employment somewhere around there. And so for her, it's almost full circle moment. She's come back to do the strategy, leading us into Brisbane 2032.
Amazing. Well, I'll have to chat to her about this as well then.
Yeah.
But what did that development process look like? And particularly from your point of view, what was your involvement like?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough working with the exec team and Nicole in particular around engaging our staff first and foremost. I think that's the most important thing is the strategy is going to be delivered by our staff or our athletes. And so it meant engaging with our staff and importantly our athletes too. And then also our wider stakeholders. So, as we've been talking about, we look after so many different sports and athletes. So engaging Basketball Australia, Wheelchair, Paralympics Australia, Com Games Australia, the Australian Olympic Committee. There were several stakeholders to engage with. And then from that, we had a values day and we called it Values Arena, which was quite cool. And it was a day where all staff could come together, understand a little bit about how the strategy is progressing or how we're getting there and, to find our goal and mission. But most importantly, come together to try and understand the values in which we're going to bring about these values and the mission. And really the mission of the vision of the VIS is to inspire athletes in Brisbane 2032 and inspire Victorians. That's the long-term vision, right? But our day-to-day goal is to empower athletes to succeed in sport and life. And so the Values Day was a really important day because the values is how we're going to achieve that. It was a pretty cool experience to be able to work with Deirdre, and Deirdre put in her pitch that she did do Wheeled Uni Games as their strategy, and she's obviously done a great job there, turning it into a really big event. And then from that, engage our staff through to all our stakeholders, which then spits out a document like this, right? That we refer to.
Beautiful document,
yeah. That we refer to now. Yeah.
Amazing, very good. I'd love to know, because you've been at the VIS for a while now, so you've kind of seen the old strategy and the new strategy, and I heard someone very simply break down like what is a strategy to simply being a set of priorities. And I'd love to know like what has become a new priority in this strategy compared to the previous one.
I think the biggest one is probably Brisbane 2032. And it's pretty obvious, right? Like we've got a home Olympics in Australia that we want Australia to perform at and make it the best games ever since Sydney 2000. And to do that, we need to have a united system, and we also need to have a strong strategy that backs us in there. And so that's effectively what's new in this strategy. It's really focused pillars to make sure that we've got the right staff in place, supporting athletes as best as we possibly can, providing world-class expertise and facilities, to win as many medals and get as much national representation and Victorian representation in Brisbane.
So if I've got it here in front of me as well, and you've nailed the mission and the vision in terms of empowering athletes to succeed in sport and life, and VIS athletes are thriving and succeeding on the big stage and inspiring Victorians, which is awesome. But then you've got it broken down into 4 pillars here. So the first one being performance excellence, second one being athlete focused, coach led, third one being collaborative sporting systems, and the fourth one being sustainable success. And you've then broken it down into kind of 2 horizons. So horizon 1 being 2025 to 2028, and then horizon 2, 2029 to 2032. What was the purpose of kind of splitting it into these 2 time horizons, as opposed to saying, like, let's just have one massive 8-year runway?
Yeah, it's a good question. The reason is because 8 years is a long time. Where Brisbane 2032, as quick as it will come, is also a very long way away. And so if we had just one pillar, or one horizon, just that one 8-way window, where's the point to refresh and check and make sure that we're still relevant and what we're doing is aligned to Brisbane 2032? Which is why it's broken up into 2 4-year cycles. And the first 4-year cycle is really consolidating all our efforts and making sure that we are doing the right things, implementing the right systems before then the next 4-year cycle is all systems go. We know Brisbane's happening. We've done the work. We've done some things. We've adjusted as we've needed to. And then that's going to set us on the path to Brisbane. So it needs to be, if you're looking at something and trying to wing it in 8 years, you need to have a really strong checkpoint in between, which is why it's broken up into two horizons.
Yep. When you say systems, what does that kind of look like once executed? Is it new facilities? Is it new types of staff? Is it something else? Technology, all of the above?
Yeah, it's a combination of everything, right? Technology changes probably daily, right? So if we only had a strategy that focused on 8 years and we focused on the technology that we have now to leverage in 8 years' time, it's going to be redundant pretty much, right? So technology is one, and making sure we've got innovative sports science equipment and methods as well to really drive that, where the VIS is one of 11 IOC international worldwide facilities for research. We're really proud of that, but also...
Sorry, just on that, what does that mean?
So that means out of... There's 11 centres worldwide that are accredited to do research in line with the Olympics and Paralympics, and so that's what we have. We have a facility right here in Victoria. I think that all Victorians could be proud about that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's quite cool. So going back to, I guess, we're really trying to make sure we've got the right innovation techniques and methods and tech. The second part around that is the staff and making sure we've got world-class staff who can drive these standards, because you can have all the technology in the world, but if no one knows how to operate it or do all the research and the innovation, it's no good. So we need to make sure we've got the right staff. And a key metric, for Brisbane success is a high portion of our staff represented on national teams, supporting the team. So it's not just about the athletes. Yes, that's core of our business, but second to that for our staff is making sure they're well represented when it comes to Brisbane. Yeah.
So does that mean when the national teams go out and they're selecting, who's going to be the coach or the psychologist or the physiotherapist, they're coming from the VIS?
Yeah, we want them to come to us for our knowledge, for our innovation, and because we're world-class expertise. And that's not. I say that without trying to be arrogant or cocky or anything like that. But Victorian taxpayer dollars go into this institute, so we want the best of the best to support and showcase that skill set and ultimately inspire Victorians. Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of money is going to be, or a lot of time and attention is going to be going into developing the people of the VIS, which is it's kind of really cool if you're coming in as like a potential candidate wanting to work there, and and your own personal development is really important to you, thinking about what's going to support you through the next few years.
Yeah. And one of the cool things is, right, when I grew up, I wanted to be an Olympian, right? And if you look at the Australian population, only 0.001% of the population have made it, or are Olympians, or who've been to Olympic Games. But what's the next best thing? Maybe being a staff member there, or working at the Games. So, and last at the Paris Paralympics and Olympics, we had over 37 staff. We're a staff of 110. So what's that? About almost 30% of our staff represented the organisation at the Games, which is quite cool.
So in terms of the people planning behind this new strategy, Are you guys like ripping up the org charts and starting again, or like what does that sort of people plan look like for the next 4 years?
There's probably a combination of different things. One is we're a government-funded organisation, so we got to make sure that our organisation is sustainable with the funding that we have, and so we've done that. We've right-sized the organisation.
Is that a public figure we can talk about?
Yeah, it's all public. It's taxpayer dollars. So we've made sure.
Can we say how much is it?
20 million.
20 million. Okay,
20
cool.
million. So we got 20 million to get as many Victorians as possible onto the stage.
Yep.
The next part of that is what are we doing with that? What's the best use of that funding? To get our Victorian athletes thriving on the big stage. What is the staffing that they require? What is the servicing they require? The support they require? What do we need in terms of operational budget to make sure that they can get to the World Championships, the qualifiers, all that kind of stuff. So that's probably what we're looking at. But then for me in particular, what I look at is, so we get the people in, but what's the people experience like? And are we set an example for them to thrive and be world's best? And everyone's motivated differently. But for me, if people are having a great experience at the VIS, whether that be on a day-to-day or from their induction right through to how they transition off, that sets the standard for them performing at their best. And if staff are performing at their best, they're probably going to help athletes thrive as well. You do a good job when you're thriving, so that's what my next goal is.
Amazing. Well, I mean, you've just covered off the first pillar here, performance excellence, which under the first horizon is relentlessly striving for world-class performance and continuous improvement and performing when it matters. A lot of these sort of like descriptions under the pillars, at a surface level, sound like they're speaking to the athletes and the coaches, but I'm guessing they kind of go much deeper than that, to the HR team or the comms team or digital team as well. Is that right? Yeah,
correct. And I think it's the ways in which we do things can be done differently. When we align to the goal. And I think I'll use the example of going to Bali. For example, you might have a goal of I want to be lean and muscular when I go to Bali, when I'm walking along the beach or wherever it is in there. So you go to the gym, you lift a couple of weights, you drink a protein shake, and 3 months goes by and you're in Bali and you may or may not have achieved your goal doing that. But what you're doing in that situation is you're doing the actions without actually thinking about the plan and the goal. What you need to do is actually the goal, the plan, and the action. So if your goal is, getting lean and muscular for Bali, that's your goal. Okay, well, the plan is to do that, you might need hypertrophy training. So 3 times a week, you're training hypertrophy. You've got nutrition. Your nutrition is 3 meals a day or whatever, 180 grams of protein. And then your action plan is, well, I'm going to the gym. I'm lifting this weight, 3 sets of 10. My nutrition is this. My rest and recovery is this. My hydration is this. And so those are all things that you'd normally do. But when you know what your goal is, you can actually do them in the right manner. If you're lifting weights and you're doing sets of reps of 3, that's strength training. You're not probably going to get that goal. But if you're doing reps of 10, it's the same action, but you're doing it aligned to your goal. And that's what the strategy is really about, is making sure that the actions that we do, are aligned with that inspiring Victorians and making sure athletes are thriving on the big stage 8 years from now.
I remember when he's in the Olympic ecosystem, David Prowse, CEO of Hockey Australia, when he came on the podcast, episode 171 for anyone who wants to go back, he used to talk about employees' approaches to work. And he said, if you're working on something and you've got no idea how it ladders up to the overall strategy of the organisation, stop what you're doing, go for a walk, come back, reset, start again, because otherwise, you might be drifting off in your own direction, which they can't have.
Absolutely. And Dave's a great example of progression within the sports industry. He started off as golf actually, and then moved into softball, and now
I think he might have been cricket before that.
And his cricket before that. There you go.
Yeah, I think he got in as a commercial manager, then went to golf, and then softball, and then golf. Hockey.
Yeah.
Yep.
So great examples in here.
Yeah, and he was very good for some water polo tickets at Paris last year too.
There you go. Nice one.
One of the other pillars here is athlete focused, coach led. When you're coming up with like a pillar like this, is this kind of developed from the top down or bottom up? How do you come up with something like this?
I think it's a bit of both because one of the key things about the VIS is we're 450 athletes, right? So that's, we've got effectively one staff member to 4 athletes. So athletes make up is the reason why it exists. We're there to inspire. They're there to inspire Victorians, and we're there to make sure that they can do that. So having that athlete led it was a common theme that came through the whole thing because they make up the bulk of what we do. So it was probably a given that we were going to be athlete coach led, right? Because we want to make sure that there's a good relationship between that for them to thrive and grow. And as you know, our mission is empowering athletes to succeed in sport and life. So they're at the heart and center of what we do.
So when you're going through these workshops with Dee, are these athletes in the room with you to discuss ideas?
Absolutely. There were several focus groups with athletes, the ability to submit feedback differently via different mechanisms for them to be engaged, really. Because ultimately this strategy is for them. Yeah.
Let's move on to the third one, collaborative sporting systems. What does that look like in practice?
In practice, it would be everyone working together in unison and harmony with everyone getting along really well, holding hands. And look, to be honest, the sports system is really cool because particularly within, we don't have clubs or anything like that, like the footy, right? Where, Fremantle's competing with Gold Coast or whatever it is. Water polo isn't competing with rowing or anything like that. We're all working together to represent Australia at LA and French Alps in 2030 and then Brisbane in 2032. So for me, it's working really well with our different partners and making sure that we're supporting them as well as them supporting us. And that's what the HP 2032 Plus strategy is, which is a whole collective system strategy aligned to winning well and making sure that we can all thrive, the whole system thrives in Brisbane 2032. So ultimately with collaborative systems, it's working well with our games partners, with our different national sporting orgs for our athletes so they can thrive.
So that's not just talking about like department to department. You're talking about the QAS and the AIS and, Water Polo Australia, Hockey Australia, and the IOC, etc. Absolutely.
It's all of us working together. Yeah, absolutely. The key, obviously, we need to work together within the VIS as well. But then certainly, with our partners external to us, we need to be working and thriving with them.
Amazing. And sustainable success. What does this look like done differently in the new strategy compared to VIS in the past?
Yeah, I think sustainable success means using our resources well and using them in the right methods. It honestly just means making sure that we are making good use of our money and our budgets to maximise the potential of our athletes. But the other part of that is also being proactive. It's not just accepting that this is what we've got. It's being proactive and going, okay, well, where can we source more funding? Where can we source more budgets? Where can we be a leader in this, in a space or an area of expertise? And so, it's one thing to sit idly and accept your fate, or the other part, which is in the strategy, is making sure that we're going out there and being proactive with different measures to really help the VIS thrive and grow.
Just on that, it sounds like a great job for the commercial team to look after, but. I think most people who probably listen to this podcast probably understand the makeup of, a typical professional sporting team, where you're largely selling tickets, very, very commercial. But for, a high performance institute such as yourself, I'm guessing the makeup of staff is very different from an org chart point of view and numbers on the board. So we'd love to kind of hear from you what the makeup of the VIS looks like. Is it heavy on coaches, heavy on commercial? What do those departments look like?
It's heavy on high performance staff and performance health staff. There are 4 departments at the VIS. The first one is corporate services. So they look after finance, IT, administration, facilities. Then you've got my department, people and community. We're the smallest department, but I like to say the fun department. We look after HR, media, marketing, events, First Nations and community programs. So we're together, corporate services and people and community make up about a third of the organisation. The rest of the organisation is made up, the other third is high performance. So they're all our coaches, high performance staff, sports scientists, physical prep coaches, data intelligence team. So that's the high performance department. And then we've got performance health services, which makes up the final third, which is all physios, nutritionists, performance psychologists, performance lifestyles we spoke about at the start, nurses, doctors. So it's a very unique organisation. Funny story, we were playing footy the other day, and there were 6 physios playing footy at the time, and I've never felt safer playing a game of football in my life, knowing that there was one of 6 I could turn to if my hamstring decided to give way. So quite unique.
Well, I'm past 30 now, so I might need that support as well. So that's very cool to hear. Is there any particular department that you think is going to benefit the most from this strategy or get extra support based on the new direction?
I don't think so. I think it's up to every individual employee and on how they interpret it, and even prospective employees, how they interpret it. For example, in payroll, you can be doing the same payroll processing, and you probably are going to be doing the same type of action in a year's time from now or 6 years from now. But it's more aligning that to the goal, right? The end goal. If you know what the end goal is, you can go, is this method right? You can question it, and it might be right or it might be a new way to do it. Same with marketing. The stories that we tell, do they align with that end goal, or are we just telling stories that don't fit the actual end goal of what we want to do? And particular for our performance health and high performance staff, they work extremely hard. They're exceptional experts in what they do, and they know that their vision, their role is to prepare these athletes for Brisbane 2032 and develop and guide them. And if that's their long-term goal, they know what they need to do for themselves to equip themselves with the expertise to service those athletes.
I want to shift slightly to another part of the strategy, which is around how you go about it. So the values of the VIS, because it's all well and good to have these targets and priorities of what you're going to do, but also how you go about it is equally important, so you can get there in the right way. But we'd love to know, how does the VIS bring together those, or live those values of purpose, integrity, ambition, and collaboration? What does that look like on a daily basis out at Lakeside? Yeah,
so really interesting is that our values aren't just those 4 words. It's actually a value statement. So it's champion the pursuit of excellence with collaboration, purpose, integrity, and so it's not just 4 words like most do it, like 99% of organisations out there. It's a statement, and the reason for that is quite deliberate. One is, yes, we wanted to be a bit different, but 2 is, yes, we want to be different. So you are encouraged to try new things. You are encouraged to try new methods. You are encouraged to have a go at a new research or dip yourself into a different area of expertise or upskill yourself where you can. And that's the reason why we have the value statement. Yes, we're going to always act with integrity, and I dare say any employee that we hire would act with integrity. It's super important. We have Sport Integrity Australia who oversee integrity in sport. But for me, it is really important that those values highlight, and that statement highlights that, yes, we're doing something differently, but you are encouraged and empowered to do things differently. And at times you're going to be restricted, but for the most part, we want you to have a go at the very least.
Now, as Director of People and Culture, it's your responsibility to make sure that everyone's doing this every day, and doesn't, it's all well and good to put a strategy together and have values and whatnot and, put in a nice little document, but unless it's lived out, it's kind of pointless. So how do you kind of encourage or stimulate people to bring this to life without having to remind themselves?
Yeah, it's interesting. And to be honest, it's probably the biggest it's not a challenge, but it's something that I think about a lot without, it's one thing to say, yes, I encourage you to do something. And then if 99% of the time you're shutting it down because we don't do it, then that doesn't make an employee feel valued, or why should they be motivated to try something? And that might be the reality for a lot of things. But one of the things I do in particular, and this is where your podcast comes into play a little bit, is we look at in our people and community team meeting, and I'm very fortunate. I don't just look after HR, I get to look after marketing, events, First Nations. And when the team comes together for our weekly meeting on a Monday, we bring something creative that we've seen. And the reason for that is because if we're not keeping up to date with what's going on in the world or what's happening in socials or media or something cool that we've seen from that other sports are doing, then how are we ever going to upskill ourselves or elevate our brand? And so, Jacob Gaynor and the GWS Giants have featured a fair bit on that, some of their creative stuff. But there have been some stuff that we've done. We saw an ASOS video of what it's like to interview at ASOS. And so we're like, hey, we can probably do that better. So then we had a crack and did it ourselves. And so it's little things like that when we research and see what other people are doing. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel, but you can try and do things better if you see it. So that's probably one of the key ways we try and stimulate that in creativity.
Yeah, I'll have to try and find the episode for you, because I remember listening to a podcast that talked about the onboarding system of Canva. Yeah, and what happens when you're a new employee and what your first 2 weeks look like. And it was really inspiring, to be honest, to kind of see how much detail they'd gone into to think about the employee journey in those first 2 weeks, so that they hit the ground running and can I think they called it not speed to value, but maybe it was speed to value, but the ability to get running straight away. If I find it,
you'll have to flick that through. I've got some work to do.
Yeah, exactly right. Awesome. Well, really cool to see the strategy of the VIS and how those values kind of bring it to life as well. For people looking to enter the VIS, how might they incorporate this strategy and the values into being successful in their application?
Yeah, it depends on the level of role you're going into. I think the main part is really demonstrating that world-class expertise. And whether you're a fresh graduate or someone who's been, working in your respective field for 10 years, it's how do you demonstrate that for the position that you're applying for, you bring that world-class expertise. And as an example, we've got an upcoming role coming up. Can I give a plug for it? Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Social media assistant, actually. So entry-level role for those fresh graduates who've just finished their marketing degree and really keen behind a camera or good with social media. Here's an opportunity for you to work in the lead up to the Com Games next year at the Victorian Institute of Sport. So keep an eye out for that.
Kevin who listens to the podcast, he'll have his eyes peeled for that.
Nice. But one of the cool things about it is it's an entry-level role, right? So what's the world-class expertise that you're going to bring to that? So, for world-class expertise, I reckon if you've done volunteer work with your local footy club or netball club, whatever it might be, maybe an institution, you've done some pieces, you've got a portfolio, you've taken the time to build a Canva profile or a portfolio of some sort that demonstrates your skills and experience. That's probably the level of world-class experience that I'm looking for.
Yep.
Compare that to someone who's been in the field 10 years, probably a different level of expertise. Like I'm looking for really polished videos and stuff like that. So, so for me, it's okay. Well, if our strategy says we want world-class staff supporting our athletes and telling our stories, what does that look like for the role that you've applied for?
Yep. So it sounds like at the senior level, are you doing this extremely well? And at the entry level, are you demonstrating acts of initiative, so to speak, that signal your potential to grow in that? Is that kind of...
Absolutely. And I think the key word there is initiative. If you can demonstrate that you've shown real high levels of initiative when you're younger or when, at an entry level, then, I can trust you. And one of the key things, it's real funny, is people will apply for social media roles, right? Or marketing roles. The first thing I'll do is I'll go check out their LinkedIn profile and they have no imagery or they haven't done a great job. And one of the key tasks of a social media assistant is looking after our LinkedIn profile video. So if you can't look after your own profile, what chance do you think or trust am I going to place in you to look after the VIS's one, right? As an example. That's probably my key point is, we really got to demonstrate that initiative from the get-go.
I reckon you said almost something very similar to the last time you were on, around the lines of, if you can't present a well-formatted resume that's demonstrated well, how can I trust you to present well for my organisation as well? So good to know that timeless advice has lived on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Kevin, who I mentioned, is actually a fascinating example because Kevin's been part of the Sports Grad program since the start of the year. And one of the things we get people to do is, grow an online presence. I restrain from saying personal brand because it freaks people out. All you need to do is just have a presence. And the way that we get them to do that is basically to think about what is the job that they want, who's a manager that they are looking to influence, what problems do they have in their world that they're thinking about, and how can you solve that through drip feeding content on LinkedIn. So, for example, Kevin, who I'll shoot him through to you because he wants to work in social media and particularly across TikTok. And so for him, he's identified that, his potential manager is probably trying to keep up with all the TikTok trends, but, there's so many different things to do. He doesn't have time to, I assume his manager doesn't have time to scroll TikTok for 4 hours every day. Yeah. But Kevin does. And so Kevin has come up with this series on LinkedIn called 5 things I saw on TikTok this week that influenced me as a 20-year-old. So then he's bringing himself into the demographic that, his manager might be trying to target and say hey, if you want to reach me, this is what is appealing to me. Here's what you might need to do. And he's done it for, I'm going to say 27 consecutive weeks. Yeah. So is that the sort of thing that you're talking about? If you look him up on LinkedIn, you'd be like, wow, there's 27 weeks of this guy sticking to a thing. Is that the sort of thing at an entry level that would stand out to you?
There's probably 2 things. One is the consistency. So yes, 27 weeks. But the second thing is that he's keeping up to date with trends, which is effectively social media, right? So I can say, for example, if Kevin were to have the job, I'd be telling, I'd have trust that this guy can actually, he knows what's trending and can then go out and film something or create something that is on trend and relevant and timely, right? Because it will probably expire within a week, that trend or whatever it might be. So, so that's what I take from it. The other point is, being consistent is important, and a lot of people fear, am I going to get likes or who's going to like this post? But I think once you get over that fear, it's actually not about the likes that you get or the engagement, because if you're putting yourself out there, you're showcasing your expertise, and eventually you're going to build a profile. If you look at any influencer out there, chances are their first couple of videos were probably crap and had less than 1,000 views. But the more
100 in my case,
100. Well, there you go. And then the more you do it, the better you get at it. The more people start to engage, and it's no different to LinkedIn. And one of my good mates, James Shaw, I'll give him a plug. He's a leader in the recruitment space for High Performance Sport in Australia, and he posts every week on LinkedIn. It's his religious. He's done that religiously, and that was one of his goals at the start of the year. And he's started to get really good engagement around that, and people know him as a trusted advisor and recruitment expert in the industry. So you just got to get over that fear, I think. And then once you get over the fear, you'll find that consistency easier to do.
Absolutely. My old executive general manager, Steph Beltrami, I caught up with her probably 3 or 4 years after I left Cricket Australia. And during that time, don't think I'd got a single like from her, didn't get a single comment from her. But then when I saw her in person, when I saw her in person, she was like, "Oh, Ruben, really cool to follow your journey, what you've been up to." I'm like, "Really? You haven't engaged with anything." But and she was like, I don't like anything, I don't comment anything, but I still follow and see everything. And so it can be a little bit demotivating, if you need the validation all the time. But know that people do see everything, even if you don't get the engagement that you might want.
Absolutely, and it's no different to our relationship, Ruben. I've seen you walking down the beach, and we've had a great chat.
That's right.
because we've seen each other, and I think for me that's the cool thing, is when you can connect with someone, and then you've got all these conversation points to talk about, and then you've got your outside of work stuff that you talk about too. It's really cool. It's a fun community, but you're right. It starts because you've been open and you've been transparent, and you're not doing it. I think most people have good intentions when they're posting on LinkedIn. It's some of it might be trumpeting your own horn, and that's okay. You've done a great job, showcase it. That's what it's there for. But at the same time, it's tailored, and you're doing it because you're really proud of what you've done, and you're proud of your organization, and you're proud of your work. It's pretty cool. Some of the cool stuff, I've seen some cool stuff that uni students have done lately, and it's amazing. So don't feel shy. Put it out there, because I guarantee you, a prospective employer is probably looking at it.
Well, you mentioned you reinforce the point around initiative. 1%, maybe it's 2% now, of profiles on LinkedIn actually post content. So if you want to beat the other 99%, just by virtue of posting anything, you're already taking the initiative to go above and beyond. Which I think signals, at least to me, all right, this person's prepared to put themselves out there. They've taken the time to think about creating something and then execute on it. Which even if you don't feel it's that good, is enough to say I've got initiative.
Well, 100%. And look, to be honest, Ruben, you come up every day on my LinkedIn when I check it, right? And we don't chat all the time, right? So, but I know exactly what you're doing. I know what's Grad's up to. I know, when it's opening, when it's closing. I know who's got a job recently, who's graduated in marketing and needs a social media assistant role kind of thing. So, it is, it's being consistent, being at the forefront and using that initiative. Because if you display that, then I can trust you within my organisation, and no doubt any other hiring manager would be able to trust you too.
And now LinkedIn's like feeding stuff from 3 weeks ago into people's feeds. So it's even more clutter. So sorry about that.
That's okay. Anytime.
What about like how might you incorporate a strategy and the values of an organisation into, say, your resume, your cover letter, or an interview? Like, should someone literally go and copy paste, athlete focused, coach led, and type that into their cover letter, or how should they, touch on things like this?
Yeah, I think this is important because AI can generate you a really great transcript, or if you can say translate this into my expertise, and it will give you that. What AI won't give you is how you can bring that to life with your own examples. It doesn't know your skill set, doesn't know your expertise, it doesn't know what you're passionate about, even if you tell it, right? So what you can do is you can pick out those key terms, athlete focused, coach led, and then how do you bring that to life in your own way? What is the unique way that you bring that to life? Because I don't expect you to have done it with our strategy, because you're not an employee yet. But how have you brought to life that overall pillar and that understanding? Same with sustainable systems or performance excellence. How do you bring that to life in your own unique way with your own unique examples? And that's probably the key for me. It's not so much paragraphs of, I align to performance excellence because it's one of my values. It's, performance excellence is a standard that I strive to every day. I've achieved this through consistently posting on LinkedIn, through my involvement with World Uni Games or whatever it might be, and delivering a fantastic result that had this many customers or this many sales or this many people turning up or this engagement on social media. So I think that's the important part is, drawing out on the keywords and bringing it to life in your own unique way.
Okay, so don't just copy paste it for the sake of it.
No, I think, because it's, like, I've read the strategy, I know it. If I see it, I know you've just copied and pasted. But if you bring it to life in your own way, then that's probably going to resonate with me a bit more. And it shows effort, and goes back to that term initiative, right?
Does this filter down into the recruitment process as well? Like, are these, translating into questions that you're bringing up in interviews as well? Yeah,
I certainly would be asking, if you don't include any cover letter, I'm going to ask the question anyway, right? How would you bring to life performance excellence at the VIS? What are the strategies you've used in place to really drive, sustainable systems within the work that you do? I'm absolutely going to ask questions aligned to that, to make sure, first of all, to see, hey, have you read our strategy? And, been actively listening and, thinking about how you can bring to life your skill set in our organisation, or have you just copied and pasted and not actually thought about what it actually means for you or for your expert skills?
Amazing. Before we wrap up, what's probably the most exciting thing from your point of view in terms of the new developments that are coming through?
I think the most exciting thing is the new CEO. We've got, I'm surrounded by an incredible team. The VIS is full of the most wonderful people, experts in their field, but more than important than that, they're humble, they love sharing a yarn and trying new things and engaged. And for me, that gives me a real sense of pride. There's not a single day I don't enjoy coming into the VIS or cycling into work, right? For me, it's just this home filled with exceptionally talented and hardworking individuals. And so for me, any person who's looking to join us, I'm making sure that they're the right cultural fit. They're showing initiative. They understand our strategy. They want to bring it to life. They feel motivated to do so. Because I guarantee you, if you're lucky enough to be hired here, you're going to have a fantastic experience. And I think I said this to when I presented the strategy to all staff. I did say, I'm in a very privileged position. I get to see all the applications that come through, and they are very good. All the applications that get through are very good, but the ones that get hired, they're exceptionally great. And that's exactly the people that we have at the VIS, and that's exactly the kind of people that we want to join our organisation.
Well, that is a feeling that I get every time I come into the VIS. I think now you've got an incredible facility. You've always had the amazing people, but now you get the facility to match as well, which is really cool. And now you got the strategy as well to go with it too. So It is an incredible time to vet the VIS, it sounds like. So, Dan, thanks so much for coming in here and talking us through what's involved and how to make the most of it from a job hunter's point of view. And looking forward to getting you back a third time at some point in the future. Hopefully it's not 200 episodes away.
It's like for another 4 years away. What's that, post LA? So we'll see you in 2029, hey?
Perfect. We'll see you then.
Thanks, Ruben.
Hey guys, quick one. Are you either A, dreading going back to work tomorrow, or B, on a mission to fulfill your potential and get there as quickly as possible? If so, then you need to apply for the SportsGrad Method program. The program is designed to help you get a full-time job in sport as quickly as possible, and inside it, I distill the lessons I've learned from asking over 300 people how they got a job in sport. I'm talking professionals from the AFL, Premier League, cricket, NBA, Olympics, you name it. And I've combined it with the methods that not only got me hired by Cricket Australia before graduating, but also helped me double my salary during COVID. SportsGrad has helped people land over 700 roles in sport, and this program takes the guesswork out of an industry where most people think you need to get lucky. To apply for the SportsGrad Method program, head to www.sportsgrad.com.au/program.